What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast where you really didn't ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listening, if you're searching on the web for another movie podcast and you just love movies so much that you just want to hear two lonely people in their rooms talk about it over a computer, then you have reached the right place. That is for dang sure. But no, if you were looking for one and you decide to try us out, the Reel Me In podcast, then, don't be scared. Come join the party and just join this nice little community that we got going on with just people like us and people that listen to this podcast. We all just love movies. But if you are new to the show, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. But if you are new, what we typically do is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that drop throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And then we will have a review or reviews of movies that come out on said weekend and then box office results to accompany that. This is episode 249. Yes, we are one away from 250. That is just bonkers. And the movie on trial today in question, the one that will be examined further by both of us, is the 2018 version, 4 times over now, of A Star Is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. It's going to be quite a discussion, and of course, Joel will have some surprise reviews to throw at you guys. Before I throw it over to Joel, just please make sure that you guys spread this episode around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast, and you just love it so much that you want to, not bother people with it, but just tell them like, hey, check out that Reel Me In business. And they're gonna be like, I don't know what that is, and they just walk away and you never hear from them again. But until then, we appreciate you for trying. And speaking of the Joseph, Joel is over there. He's ready to go for another episode of movie talk and just conversation. So Joel, what's going on, man? How are we doing this week?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Not much has happened since we last talked, which was just less than a week ago. It's funny because we had not recorded for like 2 weeks before that. Now we're recording for the second time within a week. It's been only 6 days. But yeah, since then, just kind of working, hanging out, not a whole lot has happened. So, week ahead, I think my grandparents are coming into town. Might be a little later than that, but yeah, it's been a pretty fun time. So.
See, this is going to be one of those weird cases for like the next few episodes where you might hear some stress in my voice, maybe some frustration or anger. And it's not because it's all Joel's fault. It's only like 90% his fault. But what's basically going on in my life is that I am currently moving out of my apartment, and of course, I got the stress of my parents moving across the country. I got to worry about my stuff over there, and it's just, guys, it's just going to be one of those months. But once I move into the house that I'm going to, then I will have, somewhere to be for a while. I don't have to run around all the time. So just for the next few weeks, please bear with me. I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be tired. I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. There's no reason to lie to you. But hey, listen, life happens, right? It just comes at you, hits you in the face, and goes, get up. And you're like, man, that hit me pretty hard, man. No, so
get away from my face.
Yeah, please get away from my face, life. But no, I just want to let you guys know that, it's busy over here, but it'll be all for the better. It's just a little stressful, but that's okay. I mean, the one thing that I like to do to de-stress throughout the week is talk to you guys and talk to Joel, and hopefully we can either A, agree on a movie, or B, disagree to a point where we provide really great entertainment for you guys. So either way, it's always fun. So Joel, I guess if you want to get the show on the road, what do we got going on in that movie news world?
Yeah, it's kind of been a light 6 days. I will say that there was one trailer that dropped today that we're going to just move to next week. And we'll talk about that one next week, but it was so late, I just didn't want to move anything around. But in terms of the news, not a whole lot has happened. Honestly, it was pretty slim pickings out there. But our first news comes from Disney. Of course, they are like ramping up live action remakes of their Golden Age period, Renaissance period movies. And this is, I think, the most recent animated movie to get a live action remake, unless I'm wrong. Pretty sure I'm not, though. I think that this is the one. But Lilo and Stitch is their latest target. For the uninitiated, of course, this was the 2002 film about an experimented upon alien designated 626 that crash lands on the Hawaiian island of Kauai and befriends a young girl named Lilo. She names the creature Stitch, and a bunch of adventures ensue. Um, Really delightful movie. If people have not seen it, this actually comes from the team that later moved to DreamWorks and did How to Train Your Dragon. And it's not I don't think it's as good as How to Train Your Dragon, especially the first one, but it's a delightful movie. It's really, really good. It's one that actually I missed in theaters though. That was one that I later caught up with on video, to use the 96 phrase. But it was a delightful movie. What we don't know yet is almost everything else about this movie. We don't know who's going to be directing it. There is no director attached. We don't know if this is going to be their exclusive to their streaming service, although it probably will be, or whether or not this is going to be a theatrical release, because we don't really know their strategy for those. They seem to be doing both pretty much at the same rate. At this point, we do know a couple of things, though. We know that the movie is going to be produced by Dan Lin and Jonathan Ayrick, who are already behind the Aladdin remake that comes out in May. Those are the main producers behind that film. That one's the Guy Ritchie movie. So, and we also know that the screenwriter is a man by the name of Mike Van Wees, who this is really, really fascinating to me, because it's an unanticipated place to draw from, because he's also written a movie that has not come out yet, and that is The Crooked Man, the Conjuring spinoff. So they pulled him from that to this. Really weird, but I like this. I mean, it's certainly going to be a big point for representation in terms of hiring actors of color, because this is, it's obviously going to be Hawaiian actors that they're going to choose for something like this. So that's pretty cool. Beyond that, I mean, I don't have many feelings. I'm going to have to see how this shakes out, especially I'm going to have to see who they get to direct this. That'll be a big play. But I do think that this has potential. Chase, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's pretty ironic that you say that you didn't catch that one in theaters, because I specifically remember watching this in theaters. It was one of my last like memories I can kind of recall back more than 10 years. I remember going to this really kind of rundown theater, and it had maybe 2 screens tops, and it was 2002, so I don't know what other movie was playing there, but one of them was Lilo and Stitch, and I was 12 at the time, and I remember watching it, and I was like, man, this was really, really cool. And so I own it, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
I will admit, I can't remember why I didn't see it in theaters. It's absolutely a movie I would have.
That's because people don't know Joel at that age just did not like movies. It was one of those weird things where his parents forced him to watch movies, and he did not want to do it. And I don't think Joel doesn't like to admit it, but I think when he turned 21 and he had a beer or something, he just opened up his eyes to a whole nother world and was like, man, I really love movies now. So it was a late start for Joel in life, but I really appreciate him finally catching on. To go back
I'm trying to look through here to see when it came out in 2002. Was it December?
I think it was June or July, right?
Oh, it might have been summer. Let me see. Because I can't quite remember.
Yeah, it was probably during summer, because I visited my grandparents during the summer, and that's when we saw it.
It was June 21st.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
It was the weekend that Minority Report came out, and that's what I saw instead. That's what happened. And then I think that we went on vacation. So I think it just kind of got away from me, because I know we went on vacation right in the middle of 2002.
Well,
yeah,
you know
in fact,
really...
we did, because I didn't see anything in theaters until Like Mike. Which was 2 weeks after Lilo and Stitch. So I'm sorry, I'm going way back in.
Well, no, it's just it's funny that we're talking about this movie, because I enjoy watching the movie in theaters, and I still like the movie to this day. But this was the first Deadpool type of marketing that has ever been invented. Do you
yeah.
remember when Lilo and Stitch had all the marketing trailers of Stitch intervening in the Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and stuff? And
Yeah,
I was like, man, this is different.
I do remember that. That was pretty great.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Just a comment on the live action remake. I'm kind of a mix when it comes to like, you know, live action interacting with like a CGI character. I mean, some movies can pull it off, and this is Disney, so I don't think they're gonna, you know, they're not gonna go halfway with the animation. I'm hoping it looks, you know, somewhat realistic, especially at this point in their company where their movies are just getting better and better for the most part CGI wise. So I mean, if they can make Stitch look pretty cool and have the actors interact with him in a way where I believe it is there, then I think we'll be fine. I don't want them to do a remake, but I mean, if they have to pick one to do it, this is not a bad one to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're doing a live action remake of Home on the Range or something.
Oh God.
Yeah, which was, I think, wasn't that their last hand drawn, like consistently in a row hand drawn animated movie? I think it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because I think because they then pivoted toward Chicken Little.
Correct.
That was their next in-house movie, not with Pixar. So yeah, you know, I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm gonna have to see how it all comes together. It has potential. Let's just say that it has potential. It's just, it also depends on how well they execute Stitch, because that's quite the character, and he can become annoying if in a live action setting, I think.
And also it has the advantage of being set in Hawaii, which is already gorgeous to begin with. So you're already going to have like this kind of lush, rich environment to kind of play with. So I mean, it could be actually better live action. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just get a great cinematographer to capture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that you'd have to because it's Hawaii, but still. All right, so our next news comes from Lionsgate. They are reteaming with Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal, who just recently kind of broke into the indie film world as writers with Blindspotting, one of the best films of the year. And those two are reuniting as producers for a movie called First Sight. Now, this is quite the different project from their first one. It is not a racially charged drama. It is a sci-fi rom-com hybrid that is also going to function as Casal's directorial debut. We actually don't know much about this. There's really not many thoughts that I have other than, I mean, I obviously want to see another pairing from them. We don't even know if they're going to be in the movie. I mean, I suspect that Diggs would be, just because he's got a deep acting background. I don't know. But nevertheless, even if we don't really know the premise of the movie, this is pretty exciting because they have proven themselves as vital voices in this current filmmaking climate. And I can't wait to see what they have up their sleeve with this. It sounds very intriguing to have a sci-fi rom-com hybrid at all. In general, that's a pretty cool pairing of genres. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Chase?
I mean, this is just more of a brilliant business move. I mean, let's keep it real. As much as you and I love Blindspotting, and it's critically acclaimed, there's a bunch of people out there that love it. It didn't make that much at the box office. But what I really appreciate Lionsgate doing is that they're going to keep them within the family. It's like, hey, they just released Blindspotting. It's getting all this amazing attention. Why not be in the Casal and Diggs business? So it's like you approach them. Hey, what else do you got up your sleeves? Oh, you got that? That sounds pretty interesting. Write out a treatment for it or a script, and we'll go from there. And I think that's great. Also, what I really appreciate is usually when people break out in this business, they typically go back to the well, where they will make something similar and try to capture that magic as they did with the first one. The fact that this is such a 180 difference from Blindspotting is actually really cool, because I don't know how their style is, especially with Casal doing his debut. So, I if it was another kind of like politically societal, like kind of motivated movie, I still would watch it. But now I'm even more intrigued because it's going to be so radically different that how could you not be excited for this? I mean, I'm just glad that Lionsgate didn't screw the pooch on this one, and they try to keep them within the family. It's the Warner Brothers method. As soon as something happens that's good within that company, they try to keep them on as much as possible. So, Lionsgate saw it, and they got it. So, nothing but praise there.
And it's brilliant what you said about not going back to the well for the first, because it kind of reminds me of, in a weird way, and I don't know why this is the thing that I immediately went to, but Steve McQueen going from something like Hunger, which his next movie kind of kept the same very oppressive, dramatic feel, but it was a different movie entirely, and that was Shame. And then he moved from Shame, which was a sex addiction drama, to slavery drama. Now he's doing this, Widows, which is a heist movie, and it's sort of like the best directors, or the best I should say, filmmakers, whether they're directors or writers or whatever, people in the filmmaking industry who know how to do this, who know how to pivot creatively, is always the most exciting thing to watch. And so for them to move from something that left this great impact on people who saw it, because you're right, it should have been seen more. If all of you don't see it on Blu-ray, I'm never forgiving any of you ever. But for them to pivot from that to something like this, I mean, you're right, it's such a 180. I mean, Blindspotting, to some degree, there was some comic stuff, but that's the only connection that this is going to have to a comedy that they're about to make. And the comedy is going to be completely different. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it is a 180 completely from their previous movie.
Well, and if you want to give a recent example, is Neil Blomkamp doing almost identically three movies are the same. And guess what happened?
People got tired of it.
He kind of went down the well a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody saw Chappie, and good riddance because it's a terrible movie. I know you didn't see that one, and good because
I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's no need to catch up at this point, but yeah, you're absolutely right. He made a really good movie, and then he made one with diminishing returns, and then he made one that just sucked entirely. So it's a good idea, and I can't wait to see what happens. All right, so our next bit of news is actually our weekly, or seemingly weekly, casting corner, and this one starts with Margot Robbie, who is moving into a project that is kind of been around for quite a while. Before now, it had attracted Amy Schumer, and then before that, Anne Hathaway was attached like way back in 2009, I think. It was pretty early on. And it was in development hell at Sony before being moved over to Warner Brothers. And that is the live-action Barbie movie. And now Margot Robbie is attached to that. And that's interesting. I mean, certainly all three of them have a body type that could be translated to a Barbie character, but that's not the most interesting thing about this to me. The most interesting thing is a lead that was seemingly buried by the news that Robbie was attached, and that is the fact that Patty Jenkins of Wonder Woman is in early talks to be the director of this project. So, I mean, this is pretty much, I mean, if this movie turns out well, which is, I honestly think the odds are against it that it would, but just because of the material. But if this turns out well, then is it basically proof that Patty Jenkins can literally direct anything? Because she directed a true life serial killer movie with Monster back in 2003. Emotionally devastating piece of work. And then she bounces back with one of the biggest superhero movies of the last few years with Wonder Woman, and a complete creative shift from her previous one. It didn't ever resemble anything like what was in Monster at all, ever. The cinematography was a different caliber. It was just crazy. It was just this big turnaround. Now she's going to be, if she takes this job, she's going to be shifting towards something that's going to be a lot more poppy, a lot more bubblegum in terms of the visual concepts that they're going to have to work with. I mean, obviously, because it's Barbie. That's kind of the part of the thing. I mean, if you ever watched or have seen even the DVD covers of any of the direct-to-video movies that Barbie has been a star of, I mean, that's just what it's going to be. That's really interesting. So anyway, that's one. Speaking of Wonder Woman, Diana of Themyscira herself, Gal Gadot, has joined the cast of the Death on the Nile, which is the Murder on the Orient Express follow-up to be directed by Kenneth Branagh again. And she's been added to the cast, as has Armie Hammer, which is pretty cool. I wasn't, a huge fan of Murder on the Orient Express. I know you weren't either. Just kind of bland. But I will say that I am up for any Agatha Christie media. So I am excited to see the movie nevertheless, if they can improve upon the first one, make it feel a little bit more like Agatha Christie, then that will be cool. And they've certainly attracted two good actors here to join Branagh, back as Hercule Poirot. And then lastly, it's kind of, again, not a whole lot of news this week, even in the casting world. Lastly, Chris Evans this week just announced over social media that he was saying goodbye to the Captain America character, which, side note, caused a lot of controversy. Is he basically giving away that his character is going to die in Avengers 4? I don't think that that's at all what that means, although it could be. It could also be that Captain America is just going to retire and hide out somewhere. Whatever. I'm not here to talk about that. Right after this happened, it came out that he has joined Daniel Craig in Knives Out, which is the murder mystery from Rian Johnson. It's his follow-up to The Last Jedi before he goes off and I think it's before he goes off and directs the first of that trilogy that he's conceiving for Disney. So all of this is pretty cool, I got to say. I'm intrigued by all of these casting decisions, and I'm curious, Chase, to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you know what's really funny about the Margot Robbie story? You totally pointed out the most obvious thing about it, because no one has even brought it up, is the fact that they're just all right, Margot Robbie is going to be Barbie in the Barbie movie. Oh yeah, and Patty Jenkins is going to direct. It's just kind of a little side note. It's you do realize, Warner Brothers, that she directed the biggest female superhero movie of all time, and you're just and her, and it's it just seemed like she was a side note. But I mean, hey, if she can pull it off, going from Wonder Woman to Barbie is quite a turnaround. And I would love to actually kind of see that, because I do, for the first 2/3, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman. I do liked how she directed Gal Gadot and Chris Pine in their roles, and having this very quirky comedy fish out of water story, but also have this really just kind of lovely romance going on. And it's just it played very well to it, a comic book, and I even said that into my review of Wonder Woman, is that she seems like the type of person that actually read this stuff, to where when you ask a director oh, did you read the comics as a kid? And they're oh, of course I did. I remember reading issue 236 when I was 6 years old. And it's no, you don't. I don't think you ever picked up a comic. But with her, I could sense that she was passionate and that she actually did read them, and it actually translated well on screen. So maybe, just maybe, Joel, maybe she was approached by it and she was yeah, I've played with Barbies when I was a kid, and I kind of want to adapt it into a movie now. I don't know. So, interesting choice for sure, but I think Margot Robbie's a perfect actress for this. Not only is she extremely talented, and especially if she can bring some of that snark that she had in I, Tonya to the Barbie role. Oh, man, that's genius. But she also looks the part, and that is kind of important when you are doing a Barbie-esque movie, but making a Barbie movie in 2018, I'm interested to see their approach because of the backlash that the Barbie doll has gotten over the past few years, so that will be quite a project to look forward to. The Knives Out thing with Rian Johnson at the helm, and of course Daniel Craig and Chris Evans, and it was announced today that Lakeith Stanfield's going to be in it, and it's
I didn't notice that.
This cast is stacked, dude. I can't, even if it turns out to be a really awful murder mystery, like, I just want to see it for the cast alone. But I do have hope just because Rian Johnson, yes, and that includes his Star Wars movie. I think he is he has not had a dud in my eyes so far. So I will watch anything that man puts in front of me, and knowing his background with that movie, that's kind of in the vein of like a neo-noir murder mystery set in a high school. So if he can kind of apply that to more of a, I guess, stylized blockbuster version of that, I mean, I'm down for that. And then with the Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot situation, you know, I still want to see more of Gal's work. She definitely proved me wrong in Wonder Woman, but I want to see her take on more dramatic roles. I appreciate her work in blockbusters. I think she can pull them off pretty well. But I want to see her finally tackle something that will make me go, wow. If she gets nominated for an Oscar, I would not mind. Like, I want to say those words. But the cool thing about this is that you're pairing her up with an Armie Hammer who has proven time and time again that he can be with the big boys in a blockbuster, but also, stripped down to his essential acting skills in an indie film. And we saw that last year with Call Me By Your Name. We see it constantly over and over again, whether he pops up in something as weird as like a Sorry to Bother You, or in Free Fire, or does a blockbuster Mission Impossible type of movie with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. The guy's got range. And so if you pair her up with someone that has proven time and time again that he can knock it out of the park, maybe that will elevate her to give it her all, and then maybe she will come across as like an Oscar, type of actress. So I'm hoping for the best because she is extremely likable in Wonder Woman. She can also kick ass, and she got the best of both worlds. And so I just want to see that kind of translate into another movie, but just show a different side of her. So I think all around I'm interested in all three of these projects, even the Barbie one. I never thought I'd say that, but with the cast and the talent behind the camera, I kind of want to see it happen now.
All right, guys, it's time for this week's Oscar Beat, and I'm going to attempt to make sense of the foreign language film category, although this is kind of a tough thing every single year. And for those unaware of how this category works, it's not like any of the other categories. Essentially, what will happen is a country will submit a film for Academy consideration, and it always has a deadline, and that deadline is, generally speaking, October 1st, which means that we just had it happen this past Monday. And so we'll have a short list of 9 films that will be announced in December. Right now, it seems like some of the outliers to contend include Border, which comes from Sweden, Shoplifters, which comes from Japan, Never Look Away, which is a big 3-hour epic from Germany, and Birds of Passage, which comes from Colombia, and the directors of a nominee from a few years ago called Embrace of the Serpent, which was quite good. And so it just makes sense that they're certainly in competition for that movie. There are some serious contenders, though. I think 3 of them are very serious. There's I Am Not a Witch, which is coming from the United Kingdom. It's about an 8-year-old girl who is accused of witchcraft and banished to a witch camp in the middle of a desert. There's also The Guilty, which comes from Denmark. I saw this at Dallas International Film Festival. It's about an emergency services operator drawn into a kidnapping plot over the phone. Keeps the camera on him entirely. And I thought it was okay, but people are definitely going to connect to it more than I did, and it could very well be a big one. It's Denmark's play. And then the other big contender is Cold War from Poland, which is about a romance between 2 mismatched lovers in 1950s Europe, all over Europe, actually. I didn't realize this, but it travels across like 4 countries over the course of its story. But there are 2 films at the top of the pack that I think could be very, very big players. The first one is Capernaum, which comes from Lebanon. And it stars mostly non-professional actors. It's about a child who launches a lawsuit against his parents. It comes from a director named Nadine Labaki, who I believe directed a foreign language film Winner a few years ago. I think that she was the one who directed Where Do We Go Now, which came out, I think, in 2012. So that's a big one, but the big one, the one at the top, the absolute definite front runner, even with this weird category, I'm thinking is Roma, which comes from Mexico. It's their official submission, and this is the big one from Alfonso Cuarón, which tells the semi-biographical story of his own family in 1970s Mexico City. Covers several years in that span. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's the big contender here. It's a juggernaut in the Best Picture race. I'll get to that in several weeks, of course. But I will say, though, that the foreign language film is not quite so clear-cut. So don't count out something like Capernaum or I Am Not a Witch, which are both really, really strong contenders this year, because of the fact that the foreign language branch operates just so wildly differently from everything else. They genuinely do vote for what they love, and case in point, back in 2007, the awards for 2006 that took place in 2007, Pan's Labyrinth was a nominee and won various technical categories in the broadcast, and it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, and it was absolutely one of the most popular movies of 2006, but it lost the award to The Lives of Others, which then came out for the U.S. audiences in March of 2007. So this thing can happen. It could be like something that's enormously popular that just kind of falls to the wayside because something else is a movie that the branch loved and got behind. They are very, very open about what they tend to snub or sniff at. That's why I think, for instance, that Shoplifters, even though it's one of the best reviewed movies of the year, I'm hearing that one of the recent Academy screenings didn't go over so well. They kind of had a muted response to it, even though a lot of other people didn't. That could easily fall out, although anything could happen in this category. So, yeah, I think that Roma right now is the easy front runner, but it's one to watch. Pretty much any of the other five could easily take that. But yeah, I think that those are going to be the nominees, though. I think it'll be Roma, Capernaum, Cold War, The Guilty, and I Am Not a Witch. So join me next week as I take on the animated feature film category. And yeah, so see y'all next week. Chase, do you have any thoughts about this one?
Nope. Super excited to see Roma and Cold War. Those were my two most looked forward to watching. I'm telling you, man, all the reviews I heard from Roma from Tiff just makes me want to watch it more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I cannot wait. Even if it's going to be on Netflix, I can't wait. All right. So trailers this week was kind of thin. Again, there was one that dropped today, but we're gonna talk about that one next week. So Chase, take us through the first one, sir.
All right, I am no comedian by trade, but I'm going to attempt to introduce this first one. So this first one is the Elliott Family Therapy Session, guest starring Haley Joel Osment. But the film is called Claire's Ghost, and that joke was written literally 2 seconds ago in my head. Because let me tell you about it, and then I'll explain what I just said. So this one tells a story over a single evening in the Reynolds household, and So the main woman, she kind of wants to get away from her family. It's the daughter, and so she believes there's a ghost haunting her, and it plays off as like a supernatural dark comedy with some serious moments. It's a very interesting mismatch, but when I watched it, the only person I recognized, well, two people, was Haley Joel Osment and Chris Elliott. Chris Elliott, was in a lot of comedies throughout his career. Don't really see much of him anymore, but he'll pop up every now and then and kind of pepper in a movie, and you're like, oh yeah, it's the butler from Scary Movie 2. So which is a very funny role for him, by the way. So when I was looking at the IMDb, I was like, this is weird. Is this a coincidence, or what am I looking at? Because every single person besides Osment is an Elliot. And so I was thinking to myself, there's no way. And so I clicked on it, and lo and behold, Chris Elliott is in a movie with his wife, 2 daughters, and one of the daughters is actually the writer and director of this movie as well. So basically, this is an Elliott family production, guest starring Haley Joel Osment. So
wonder how he got wrapped into it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, he must be friends with someone, and they're just like, hey, Haley, we need we need someone to fill this role, and he's just like, okay. Like, he probably just like said it like on a whim or like while he was drunk or something. But it's a very weird thing to see when 4 of them are related in real life. But to the trailer itself, it's got this interesting look to it. It reminds me of a film from the 60s or 70s. It's got a 4:3 aspect ratio, so it's boxed in. The kind of like warm glows of the goldish hues on this movie almost make it look kind of ancient in its classic kind of look, like I said, from like the 60s or 70s. The story itself, I mean, it's a typical kind of haunted house story, but it's got a nice little spin on it. I mean, it takes course over one night. It's not, drawn out or anything, so straight into the point, and I don't know, it just kind of looks interesting. It looks like it's this weird mishmash of all these, like, stereotypes and tropes of, like, a haunted house or ghost story, and it's almost like, I believe you pronounce it Bridie Elliott. She's the writer and director also in it. She's, like, taking this interesting approach to it, and the trailer was kind of awkward at first, but once you kind of got into it, I was like, you know what? It looks like they shot this over a weekend, but I gotta give them props because it looks decent. So I don't know how to feel about it. Maybe that's kind of the point. But it comes from Orion Classics. I didn't think they were still in business. But the trailer is a fascinating one, to say the least. And I might be a little biased because according to IMDb, it actually comes out on my birthday next year. So who knows? I might just be biased because of that, but I thought the trailer was definitely something that caught me off guard because just reading about it and looking at the title, I was like, oh, it's just a typical haunted house movie, but surprised me in many ways. So, Joel, what this one kind of came out of nowhere. Did you expect it to look like this when you played the trailer? Because I'm pretty sure when I saw Chris Elliott, I was just like, oh, God, what is this? And then when you play it, you're like, okay, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a mix, like you said, of this kind of sort of like a psychological thriller comedy, almost in a certain way, except that there's obviously characters who are lying about things, and yeah, it looks weird for sure. I'm curious to see how this plays out. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. It's just so weird.
Joel, I have to ask you.
While I'm listening to you, I'm looking over here seeing if there's any connection between any of the Elliots and Haley Joel Osment, and I can't find any except for the fact...
Is that what you're going to be like going down the rabbit hole for on the internet after we get done recording? You're like, I must find the connection for this.
I must. Well, it's interesting. So I did see that Osment was in this movie called Sex Ed a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Okay, well, Abby Elliott was in it. So it may have been that's where they were friends or became friends. It also may have been that they went to school together. Although I don't know where school, but yeah, it's interesting.
So I mean, so Joel, I have to ask you, since you recently saw it this year, you mentioned that this family is going to have like a bunch of secrets. Everyone's going to be hiding stuff. Do you think Chris Elliott's character, when he starts to lie, he's going to bust out with the hives like he did in There's Something About Mary? Do you think that's going to happen, where it's just like these boils like on his like neck and face, and he's just like, don't worry guys, I'm fine, as he's scratching it? I mean, I feel like that's the route they're going to go.
I mean, hey, if he does that, it's an instant A plus. Just an instant. Just I don't even have to see the movie. If I hear that it happened, it'll just be instant. Um, but yeah, it's pretty. It looks pretty interesting for sure. All right, so our next trailer is for a series. It was very light on trailers until today, and again, just decided not to move anything around. Although this is what I would have dropped. Um, if we decided to put the new one in. And this is Good Omens. It's a Prime original series. It's adapted from a novel by Neil Gaiman and the late Terry Pratchett. And it stars Michael Sheen and David Tennant about an opposing angel and demon who must race to stop the apocalypse from occurring after the Antichrist is born. And this one is definitely an outright comedy. It's very much a comedic series, although it also mixes it with this weird imagery. A lot of the effects kind of look pretty poor, but it's a TV series. I think I can set that aside for that reason. But it does look really funny, and it looks like Sheen and Tennant are certainly perfect together in terms of these roles specifically. Sheen has, I mean, I can't really think of any previous role that would lead me to believe that he's perfect for this, but I will say that earlier this year, Tennant was in a movie called Bad Samaritan, in which he played this really psychotic guy who's chained up a woman in his house and is kind of it's a very strange role. Pretty good little movie if y'all want to seek that one out. And it's super weird, and so he adopted an American accent in that, but. It was one of those roles where you really had to dig in deep to be super, super, super hateful. And so I think that him playing a demon, and just in the wake of that, having immediately seen, having that in my memory, it's kind of perfect casting. He has this way about with his voice of suggesting a lot of misanthropy and just kind of devil may care, literally. In this case, attitude. I think it's cool casting, but looks like a neat concept. I'm not really familiar with the novel, but I know that from a Facebook acquaintance of mine, they're super excited because it's apparently a great series. So I'm interested. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to watch it. I think it's a 6-part series or an 8-part series, something like that. So certainly curious after this trailer. Chase, what did you think?
So as you were talking about it, I was going down the IMDb page. I don't know why I'm slurring my words tonight. The IMDb page of this show, and in the trivia section, it actually said this was originally announced in the mid-'90s with Terry Gilliam directing Robin Williams and Johnny Depp.
Whoa!
What a weird combo.
That is something that I'm going to need us all to really work to create a time machine so that we can go back
and give that
make him do this, even if it means him not making something else. Just let's get this to happen. Let's let this happen,
right?
guys.
I want to know how that conversation went in the boardroom.
Yeah,
for the meeting. So
did Robin Williams and Johnny Depp meet ever for this project?
See, now you're going to go down 2 rabbit holes and you may never get sleep tonight. But
I know. I mean, that's going to be the new one for me. Not instead of did Robin Williams and Jim Carrey ever talk to each other? That was the old one involving Robin Williams. Now there's this one.
You're just, I'm telling you, you're never going to get sleep again. So as far as this trailer goes, I love the concept. It's such an interesting spin of, like the angel and the devil type of storyline, and it almost remind me of the kind of zaniness of like a Dogma from Kevin Smith when he did that, and it also kind of remind me of the gusto. The what?
I need to see Dogma.
Yeah, Dogma is I mean, it's Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and it deals with heaven and hell, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. But it also in the special effects, you're right, are kind of a little off because they're for TV, but it's like it reminded me of like the gusto of like a Robert Rodriguez when he would make his like green screen movies. I don't know, it just has like kind of that cartoonish vibe, but also I feel like it's gonna have like this under layer of like just really interesting philosophy and dramatic weight to it between the two characters on a more deeper level, but also being lighthearted and funny. So I don't know, man. I can't wait, and I actually I'm on that Prime Video game now, so I will definitely give this one a shot. So hey, Good Omens, you caught me off guard as well. So this is all about the trailers that just Joel throws at me and they catch me off guard. This next one, probably my favorite of the week. I'm gonna go ahead and just say it out right now. And this one is The Mule, and it stars and is directed by. Oh, I can't believe this man's still alive. Clint Eastwood, and is from the same writer he worked with on Gran Torino. And this one tells a story of a 90-year-old World War II veteran. He was in the military. He came out. He didn't really, have much going on. So, at some point in his life, he was tapped to be a mule, a drug mule, between when he carries it to where he drops it off at the cartel. And so it just so happens that this one time, after probably doing this for many, many decades, he, is like, I'm going to do it one more time. And then, of course, the FBI is on his tail. I think the FBI consisted of, like, Bradley Cooper and Michael Pena, and they're trying to go take him down. I cannot wait for this. Like, this is the type of movie that rejuvenates my excitement for an Eastwood movie. Not only does this trailer completely knock it out of the park, and it almost provides this like sense of dread, but also like super somber, because you know that this man has lived a life, but he's probably not going to make it out alive, and you kind of want to see this last journey that he's going to take. I'm curious to see like why he's doing it and all that stuff. So not on top of the trailer, the fact that you get the same combo that did Gran Torino, I love that movie. So like if you can just translate that emotional intensity from Gran Torino and apply it to this, how did he make this movie? Like, did he make this last week? Like, we heard about this movie and reported on it like 2 months ago. Like, They must have kept this thing under wraps because they're going to squeeze it in for a December 14th limited release just so they can qualify for the Oscars. So, it's like, Warner Brothers, you got some balls, man. Like, I don't know if this is actually going to be a showstopper at the Oscars or what, but if you think it is, then God bless you. But, yeah, this trailer is amazing, man. I can't wait for this. And you know what? I mean, I don't mean to sound cynical, but Clint Eastwood's getting up there. He's probably not going to be around for much longer, so if he can make this his final, I guess, performance-driven movie, that would be awesome, because this seems like the type of, like, final movie you would want to do in your career. And last thing, Joel knows I was going to say this. You guys probably knew I was going to say this, but he needs to redeem himself from the 15 to 17 to Paris movie. That still is a huge stinker to me. I still think about it constantly as like one of the worst ones I've seen this year. So I'm hoping he can redeem himself, and this trailer has sold me. I like Joel and I talked about this movie, but I had no idea the trailer would be so good. So I can't wait for this. Nothing more to say. Joel, is this going to redeem the Train movie for you? Do you think this is the trailer to set that expectation on the right path?
This looks like it could be his best movie in 10 years.
Oh, there you go. So that's what I was looking forward.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this. This looks stunning. It looks like an interesting meeting ground between utterly, completely, like, exciting and thrilling and also sobering to some extent. Very somber. But literally both, and I feel like it could very well be his best movie since Changeling, maybe even, which was his other one in 2008, right before Gran Torino, like I think 6 weeks or something. So, or maybe it was a little longer than that, but I know that it was at least a couple months. I think it was a couple months before Gran Torino came out, which I love both of those. I think that was a really good double year for him. Whereas nobody remembers Jersey Boys from from 2014. He's had some really good double years, basically. Like the obviously the Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima double feature is amazing, both great movies. But just equally, maybe even more so, Changeling and Gran Torino complemented each other really well as very different movies from the same directors, but with the same degree of filmmaking efficiency and all of that. Whereas this year have already had a movie from him, and it was not very good. Let's just say that. um, and I have a feeling he's going to be redeemed big time by this. Feels like it's going to be a big Oscar thing to me. I think that Eastwood could be nominated again for Best Actor. I think that would be his first time since Million Dollar Baby, if I'm remembering correctly. So, because he hasn't been in a whole lot. I think the last movie he was in was Trouble with a Curve back in 2012. That was the last movie he acted in. So, yeah, I have a feeling that this could be a big, big, big thing for him. And it just looks excellent in every way. I love the cast: Bradley Cooper, Andy Garcia, Michael Pena, Lawrence Fishburne. It's a great cast. It's got obviously stunning cinematography. It looks like a story for the ages. I love how they kind of do this interesting bait and switch with the first scene of the trailer, where they start to make it look like this romp about an old guy bringing drugs across the not quite comedic so much, but kind of a romp, like a road trip romp about an old guy bringing drugs across the country. With the thing where he's talking about his pecans and how his daughter makes the worst pecan pie in the world, and then it turns a little bit more somber, and it cuts to the studio logo and all of that. It's such a well designed trailer to make you invested in kind of the energy of this guy, and then immediately introduce you to the stakes of his job, so to speak. And it's just so well constructed. It's easily my favorite trailer of the week. And yeah, I would agree with that. There are a couple of good ones. From here on out, they don't get so good for me. But
oh, you calm down over there, sir. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I can't wait, man. I am very excited for this movie. So yeah, absolutely my favorite trailer of the week. And now we move into our fourth one. And this one is The Upside. This one is a remake of the 2012 French film The Untouchables. It's about a black ex-convict who assists a white paraplegic billionaire. And in the old film, they were played by Omar Sy and Francois Cluzet. And in this film, they are played by Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. And it also stars Nicole Kidman as Cranston's assistant. And it looks like they have the one big flaw of the original film, which was, I think, the second one that I ever saw at the Dallas International Film Festival, is that they don't seem to work to make much more sense of the presence of the other assistant, the Nicole Kidman character, because I liked the original film a lot, but it did not need that character. She doesn't really have any sort of, maybe they find a way to have her exist more, like for more convincing reasons. But yeah, that was one thing that the original struggled with. Otherwise, really good movie. I think it was nominated for foreign language film. I think so. I know that it was in the running. I can't quite remember if they nominated it or not, but good movie. And this one seems to be going definitely more of a studio comedy route, although there's also drama mixed in. This is obviously going to be the most dramatic role for Kevin Hart that I can think of. Bryan Cranston, always interesting to see him in a movie, even if it doesn't always work. Like Trumbo was awful. He was terrible in it, but he's a good fit for this role. It's kind of this guy who doesn't strike one as particularly humorous until you get him to open up. That's a big part of the character. Um, and I think Cranston can sell that. Um, Hart looks okay. It's got his usual kind of yelly humor. Um, I'm not super thrilled by how this looks though. I think that they have tried to lean far too heavily into the studio comedy aspirations of a story like this. The original was definitely more of a drama, especially about the demographic divide between its two characters. They seem to kind of go into this, but with a lot of very cliche-based humor, almost, or not cliche-based, but um, stereotypical humor. And so it's a bit of an upset, or it's a bit of a kind of a letdown for me. But I'm interested to see how this goes, and I think that it does its best to sell the movie to an audience who might not be familiar with the old one. Yeah, a lot of conflicting thoughts about this, but ultimately just not a fan of the trailer. So, Chase, what were your thoughts on this one?
I do not like the trailer.
Okay.
I never saw the original, but I do remember watching the trailer, and I was like, this is going to be such a great type of relationship movie between these two people that come from different backgrounds, and they're going to come together, and they're going to help each other out throughout life. And that was definitely Thunder. Do what?
So it reached you because we had a storm a little while ago. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It was supposed to be my first film at the 2012 DIFF, and it ended up being my second because I decided to on the fly. I got there like super early, as I usually do, and so I saw another one right before it that was like 80 minutes, but it was going to be my first one because I had already heard that it was this big. I think it had just played at Sundance, and I heard that it was this real crowd pleaser, and I was like, okay, I got to see this then, and so yeah, it was. I don't think there was a trailer yet either, so that was one of those things where I was going in without a trailer, um, and then I saw the trailer later on, and it does a kind of a similar thing where it leans heavily into the more audience friendly stuff about the movie. It goes to some raw places. I will say that there's especially some stuff about the billionaire's kind of situation with his paraplegia or whatever it's called, um his disability that it'll be interesting to see if they actually touch on that in a remake. They'd have to dip into some nudity areas, I think, but yeah, it's interesting because the trailer for the original one that you're talking about kind of did a similar thing to this, but this is obviously turning it up to 11 in terms of studio comedy. But
Well,
go ahead.
that might be the disconnect then, because it's Kevin Hart, and I'm not saying
Yeah,
Kevin Hart can't do it. It's just that we are so used to him doing a specific thing that you're going to sit there as a studio, and we're hoping for the best because Joel and I don't want movies to fail. That studio they probably have a gold mine on this movie with Kevin Hart's performance, and they don't want to show it. They want to show the more audience-friendly stuff to drag them in and do a flip on them, and it might make some people mad, but whatever. But I just don't like the way the trailer was constructed because it leaned way too heavily on the comedic stuff, and it almost seemed like goofy and outlandish comedy rather than like comedy you would see in more of a drama where it's more situational kind of life comedy and not this like Kevin Hart yelling and screaming and stuff. And I don't know, it was very off-putting, but I'm really hoping that when we watch this, Kevin Hart blows us away so much that we go, you know what? He might have some bad movies out there, but the guy can act and he needs to do more stuff like this. And Bryan Cranston is, one of the best actors out there, so I'm hoping if he can give a great performance, then Kevin Hart can bounce off of him and give an equal performance or maybe even better and surprise us all. But this trailer was a terrible representation of that. And I'm not saying the trailer was just all void of drama. They just need to put that more in the forefront to have a difference in Kevin Hart to the public, because as of right now, we all see him in one light. He is good in that light in certain movies, but if you're going to have him do something different, the trailer needs to reflect that, and I just didn't see it in this trailer, so it was a complete turnoff for me, but I still want to see it, and I really, really, really hope I am proven wrong. Just like with this next trailer, I hope I'm proven right in this scenario, because Joel has he's got a bug up his butt with this one, but it is what it is. It's whatever. What am I talking about? And this one is Vice, and this one tells the story of Dick Cheney, played by Christian Bale, in a very good makeup job. It is written and directed by Adam McKay, and like I said, it kind of shows us the tale of Dick Cheney being approached by George Bush to be his vice president, and I'm sure we're going to get to see that kind of rise to Cheney's bloodthirsty power. So that's basically what the movie is, but McKay's going to take the same style of filmmaking as he did with The Big Short, make it more documentary-like and more in-the-moment type of filmmaking and cinematography. I like the trailer quite a bit. I don't know what's wrong with Joel, but it is what it is. He'll explain himself in just a second, but I do think everyone looks pretty solid here. Christian Bale looks like he's going to give a pretty great performance. Amy Adams, I didn't even know she was in it. I'm excited to see her in more stuff after I just got off my Sharp Objects high with her in it this past summer. And, of course, Steve Carell has previously worked with McKay on numerous projects, including The Big Short. He's coming back. Jesse Plemons, Sam Rockwell as George Bush, Allison Pill. Tyler Perry's in this as Colin Powell. That's probably the biggest shock of the cast list besides Sam Rockwell as George Bush. So, yeah, it's a really good trailer. I'm looking forward to this. I want to see all these actors, including McKay behind the camera, step up their level from what they did in The Big Short, and that could be the case here. But I know what Joel's going to say. I get where he's coming from. I just don't see what he's talking about, because I don't really see the comparison he's giving it, but it is what it is. But I'm looking forward to this, and this could look like, if it's a really good movie, it could be one of those cases where we're looking at a director, writer, actor, supporting actor, maybe even supporting actress nod. I'm talking like a full 6 nominations in the big heavy hitter categories for this movie if it's done well. So yeah, we're looking forward to this one quite a bit. So Joel, what's going on over there? You okay? Are you sick? Do you have the flu or something? Are you delirious? Like what's going on? Is your fever high?
I am at 135 degrees, and I'm just kidding. No,
I knew it. He's delirious, folks. He's delirious. Don't listen to what he's about to say.
Okay, guys, I've watched this trailer 5 times. I've been really trying to see something in this trailer that apparently a lot of other people are seeing, and unfortunately, the trailer gets worse every time I see it. I do not get the love at all. I think that the performances look barely above SNL spoof level, right up to and including Christian Bale. I'm sure that it'll be different in context, but of course we're talking about a trailer here, not the actual movie yet. So maybe in context it seems like less of one, but the opening moments between him and Sam Rockwell as George Bush, especially because Rockwell looks and sounds nothing like Bush at all in this trailer, seemed to me like something straight out of a cold open. I expected at any point somebody to say "live from New York," all of that. And yeah, I like the song choice. I like the way that the trailer is edited, but I just don't get this. I think Steve Carell looks over the top as Donald Rumsfeld. Looks like he's trying way too hard here, and that's not something I would like to say about Carell. I thought he was great in The Big Short. Yeah, I just I just don't know,
So
man.
so
And
I have
obviously, honestly, I also have to say this, and this is not because I'm a fan of Cheney. I'm not. I think that he was one of the most powerful vice presidents because he was one of the most ruthless, and that's certainly going to be what the story's about. But maybe, maybe what you can do is try to make him seem human. And because I think that that's what the great biopics do. They aren't just take down pieces. And that's what this is going to be. Absolutely no doubt about it. It's going to be so partisan. It's not even funny. And it may not even be funny. Honestly, it just looks like a, I just, again, after 5 viewings, one of which was on the big screen, because I saw it in front of uh, whatever movie I saw. I saw it in front of A Star Is Born, and or was it A Star Is Born? I might have seen it in front of Venom. I think I saw it in front of Venom because I think I missed the trailers for in front of Star Is Born. Yeah, so I saw it in front of Venom, and even on the big screen. I mean, the big screen and amplified. It's just, I don't know, man. It just seems off in just about every single department to me. The makeup is fine, for Bale, but again, it doesn't succeed in making Rockwell look anything like Bush at all, even remotely. I think even the hair is off. I could not detect George Bush and Sam Rockwell in this movie at all. The voice is off. His face is off. It's just there's nothing.
So I have to ask you, like, would this be a simple fix? Because Rockwell is a talented dude. You and I both agree with that. But
Yeah,
since Will Ferrell has played George W. Bush and has been directed under McKay before, do you think he could do a complete turnaround and do a more of a more dramatic role if they were actually to cast someone like him who's actually? Because I'm not going to say like Ferrell is just straight up impression. Like he actually exceeds impression, and he becomes him. Like, do you think they should have gone more down that route?
if they could take the energy that he has and channel it into a dramatic, a primarily dramatic performance, like keep the voice. Yeah, I mean, anything would be more realistic to George W. Bush than this seems to be. Because again, Bale. I mean, with Christian Bale, he definitely looks like Dick Cheney. I mean, there was a picture right before the trailer came out comparing the two, and they look exactly alike. And certainly Bale has got the mannerisms, but they seemed like mannerisms to me. Like they seemed mannered, literally. And so with somebody like Rockwell, he's a talented actor, of course. I mean, I love the guy. He's one of the great modern character actors. He can show up in anything and sell it. But unfortunately, I think that's kind of come back to bite him here because he seems to be really struggling to find George Bush in himself as a performer. And that just translates to the entire thing to me. It seems like it feels to me like what we were talking about with Daveed Diggs and Raphael Casal moving from something like Blind Spotting to something like First Sight. It seems to me like McKay's kind of just running off the vibe, the afterwash or whatever, the backwash of The Big Short, and has decided to take Cheney's career and give the same exact treatment to it. Because you're right, it looks like it's going to be in the same vein, and I don't mean that in a good way this time. I think that it looks too much like it's trying to be The Big Short of vice president movies. And so, yeah, everything about it looks awkward and just very stilted, very mannered. Doesn't look very funny. I like the music choice. I think that's The Killers that they used for the trailer. It's pretty fun because it's a song about like raging machismo, which is what a lot of us attribute to Dick Cheney. So I think I think that's fine, but man, they did not do a good job for me at selling any other part of this movie. Um, and again, I hate to say it, but I include Christian Bale in that. They don't do any favors to his performance with this trailer. That's what I'm trying to say. If he's good, he's good, but it won't be because, for instance, and this is going to be true for some people, unfortunately, that they detected that he would be good because of this trailer. Because you can't watch this trailer and think that's a sincere portrayal in any way, even if it's going to be slightly satirical, of Dick Cheney. And I just have to go back to I like this movie a lot. I know a lot of people do not. It's not very popular, but Oliver Stone's W, good movie. Josh Brolin was good in it. It had some baffling, choices in terms of its casting, but he was a good George W. Bush, and I kind of almost half wish that they would have just gotten him back. Honestly, just kind of as a wink, like, okay, well, we're kind of silently continuing this story, and having him, because I know that they already had Richard Dreyfuss be Cheney in that movie, but it would just be fun, like a little reference to the fact that they got um, Josh Brolin to be George W. Bush again, because he was convincing. He went a little bit far in some of the mannerisms, but it wasn't to the degree that he was unrecognizable entirely, like with Sam Rockwell here. So
Now, Joel,
yeah,
I would agree with you. I never saw W, but I do remember seeing him in the trailers. It's very, very, very possible that he was kind of busy with 3 movies that he was shooting last year, with like
yeah, but then
Avengers, Deadpool, and
but
Sicario.
maybe, but they could just wait.
They
That's
could
the
have.
thing. Is like get somebody who looks even remotely like a Bush. Like there's no member of the Bush family that Sam Rockwell looks like to me, and it's just weird, awkward casting. And I think like I'm interested in the fact that Tyler Perry is Colin Powell, but thinking of Tyler Perry, he doesn't look like anything like Colin Powell. So I don't know how they're going to do that. They're just going to give him gray hair. That's basically it. And anyway, it's just weird. And then the even the makeup on Steve Carell looks vaguely like Donald Rumsfeld. You can tell with the smile that he's got the smile down, and he's kind of got the weird thing where he stares straight through your soul with his eyes. But yeah, it just seems like a bunch of SNL performances to me. It doesn't seem like in any particular way like there's a sincere portrayal going on. And so yeah, that's what turned me off of this. And I watched it like 3 or 4 times after that first one where I wasn't sold by it, and I was like, maybe I'll be sold. Maybe this was just like disappointment on what I wasn't expecting or whatever. But then knowing what it was and going back into it, it was the same thing. I don't get this. But that's me. I certainly recognize that I'm in the minority. A lot of people seem to be sold by this, but yeah, I'm not with that crowd. And in fact, I was further not with that crowd every time I watched it. So every single viewing revealed something else that I was just like, man, that doesn't look good. But from the beginning, though, from the first time, I was like, man, Sam Rockwell does not look or sound anything like George W. Bush. He doesn't even seem to be doing the right regional accent to me. He doesn't seem to have given him the right accent, and it's just really strange. But anyway, I guess we'll see. I mean, it's something that we'll be reviewing on the show, so certainly we'll see it. But yeah, I'm not super stoked for this. It's actually just by virtue of me watching it so many times and disliking it more. It's my least favorite trailer of the week, unfortunately. I'm less convinced by this than I am by the Upside trailer. That there's something there. But anyway, we'll see if it's good. Again, if it's good and if all of the people are good, then it's fine. But I will say though that even if Sam Rockwell is good, I'm gonna call it now. I have a feeling that he's gonna be good, despite the fact that he does not seem anything like George W. Bush. I just am not convinced that considering we've seen essentially a long sequence between the two, that there's something there that convinces me that he is George W. Bush in this movie. It's just gonna feel like him doing some sort of read on Justin Hammer as if he was from the South or something. Yeah, it's not very convincing to me. But I'm glad that you like it, though. I am. Again, I love The Big Short. I will be excited if this is on that level because that's a really good movie, and have really good performances from everybody. So including Christian Bale. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not super optimistic at this point. But we'll see. So that's my thoughts. All right. So what was our favorite trailer was The Mule, right?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. So we're definitely excited for that. That brings us to our main review. This is our shared review, and then I've got two others after that. But this one is A Star Is Born. This is the third remake of the 1937 film, following other remakes in 1954 and 1976. The
longest gap between versions, by the way.
Yeah, we're missing one from the 90s that was potentially going to star Beyonce and Leonardo DiCaprio, and was going to be directed by Clint Eastwood. Actually, speaking of him, at some point that was going to happen, and it fell through, and it was going to be in the early 2000s, I think, when that was originally going to happen. It was going to be a younger skewed story. But yeah, that fell through. This one comes from director Bradley Cooper in his feature debut, and he also stars as country rock musician Jackson Maine. This is a bit of a mess of a human. He's hard drinking, he's pill popping, and one night he stumbles into a drag bar for his 101st beer of the night, and he meets Allie, a waitress by day played by Lady Gaga, who performs in this bar to get some cash on the side. And it's an instant connection when he realizes that she has some raw talent. She's a bit starstruck by him, and the two form a near instantaneous connection that becomes romantic almost immediately. Following an impromptu performance on stage of a song that she has written and he has embellished a bit, the two embark on a professional relationship that kind of ends up forking off into different directions. She becomes a big pop star, and he digs deeper into his alcoholism. And of course, all of this can really only end one way. Chase, I'm going to turn it over to you for your review, sir. Take it away.
Yeah, so, with A Star Is Born, leading up to it with, the trailers and the fact that Bradley Cooper was going to make his directorial debut, Lady Gaga was going to be in it. There's a lot of, fascinating moving parts to this movie to where I was like, all right, this is either going to be a really good debut or it's just not going to hit. And so, they basically kept this movie pretty close to the vest. They only had one major trailer for it, and they played that over and over and over again. It's a well-made trailer. Is Joel?
And then they had a bunch of little scenes in the past few weeks. By the way, I think playing in front of the Predator. Was it the Predator? I can't remember what it was. Oh no, the Nun. It was in front of the Nun. There were a bunch of little scenes that they would release, one-offs. The parking lot scene between them early on in their connection was one of them, and yeah, that's all I can think of. But I remember seeing that one in front of the Nun.
Well, I guess I missed it because the only thing I ever saw for this movie was that one trailer that you and I talked about, and that was it. And so, from that
it's a great trailer too. Yeah.
It's a wonderful trailer, and Joel pointed out something to me that I didn't even know about, and now you guys will know it too because it was really funny to see his name both times in the credits. The same cinematographer did Venom and A Star Is Born, which they both came out on the same weekend, and they're vastly different movies visually, but I'm sure Joel will get to that.
Yeah.
But A Star Is Born, so like I said, leading up to it, I was excited. I wanted to see what Cooper could do. And also a moving factor piece into this is that Todd Phillips helped produce this movie with him. Yes, the Hangover director, the Road Trip director, and Old School director helped produce this movie. And I put this on my Twitter earlier this week, and I will say it again. if The Hangover was not as successful as it was, and if Todd Phillips did not like working with him, this movie would have probably never been made with those two people attached to it. Which is fascinating to know that the first Hangover was like the first stepping stone into this like journey of this movie being made. So that's a little tidbit for you, but the movie itself. I am not typically a fan of like musicals or movies about music. I can appreciate them when I see them if they're good movies, but music's not really my bag, and so I can't really connect a lot with musicians and the music that they play. It's just not my genre I typically go to. But I will sit down, watch it, and acknowledge if it's a good movie. I had no idea what to expect because I had never seen a previous version of this story. I'm a bit ashamed now because I love this rendition of this movie. Not really comparing it to the others, but I do love this movie quite a bit. And it's definitely one hell of a debut from Cooper. And we've seen this year, 2018, like Joel and I are probably going to live until we're about 300 years old. We're going to look back on 2018 and we're going to go, this was one of the best years for directorial debuts. And we're not even done yet. We still have, Jonah Hill with mid-90s. We had Paul Dano in Wildlife. So this is just a really great year for actors and even first-timers like an Ari Aster with Hereditary to come out of the woodworks and show us what they got.
Bo Burnham with 8th Grade.
Yeah, Bo Burnham, and it's just, it's crazy, man. But with Cooper, the one thing I really appreciated about this movie is that for a movie that, kind of touts the music lifestyle and shows off these concerts, I was actually really surprised that he was more reserved with his direction, where even, particularly in the concert scenes, almost all of his shots consisted of the people singing or the people playing the music, and that actually provided a more intimate look into this movie rather than showing off the loud, boisterous concerts like shots. This was more focused on Cooper and Gaga and even some of the more ancillary characters in the background, like the drummer or maybe a couple of guitarists. This was more on an intimate level involving the characters and the music rather than the overall experience of what a concert is and like how artists go through them and stuff. And so that's what I took away from his direction, and that's what I really, really enjoyed, particularly at the very end. It was actually at the very end, and Gaga's first, her character's, Allie's first experience with a concert. It was some of the most like mesmerizing kind of like scenes I've seen all year because the cinematography is so freeform and it just kind of floats there like a cloud and just like lingers on a medium shot and then like slowly pushes in, slowly comes out. It's just, I don't know, there's something like really, really calming about those scenes, but also super exciting because I think what Cooper also did very well is show the gradual kind of arc of Gaga's character and how she started as a singer, yes, but more of a shy type of person. It looks like she loves her father a lot. She is a person that's kind of confused in life. She doesn't know where to go. And then Cooper's character is that one character kind of to propel her up and like push her forward. And that first concert that she sings with him, goosebumps. I don't even think I would like say that about any other movie about music or whatever, but there was something chilling about her performance and how timid she was, and like she was shy as a character and she didn't really want to do it, and then she would belt out the notes and like kind of reserve herself back, and then kind of see her arc throughout the movie progressing to as big as she does. It's just wonderful character work, man. Once again, going back to Cooper, he's one of the co-writers, he is the director. So he is in charge of the flow of the story. So I will say here right now, do not take my words out of my mouth and twist them. Lady Gaga is wonderful in this movie. She is amazing. And I will put to bed any doubt I had of her as an actress. She can act. and she has proved in this movie, as her first like major time in a role, she killed it. But I'm a little disturbed that people are not praising Cooper as much for his performance. I thought his direction was very, very solid. A lot of great moments on screen. But his performance is the best I've ever seen from him. And he was an American Sniper, and I didn't really care for that movie, but I could acknowledge that his performance was the heart of that movie. This performance that he gives in this is so heartbreaking and so devastating that you can't help this guy. I almost shed a tear at the end. I cry pretty easily in movies. I'm gonna go and just throw it out there. Make that for what you will, but I almost did. Just because throughout the entire process, Jackson is the type of guy to where he seems likable. He can kick ass on the guitar, and I'll get to that in just a second. But he's the type of character that's got a lot of demons in him. He's got a lot of struggles with his half brother, played by Sam Elliott. There's just a lot of demons inside of this guy, and just when it got really bad towards the end, well, first of all, there was a character I wanted to punch in the face because of what he said to him, but it was just at the end that you realize that there was no helping this man, and I think that was the whole point with his character, is that even though she was in his life making a very positive impact, there was still no helping this guy, and it was just really, really heart-wrenching to watch. Even when he goes to the AA meeting and they have that wonderful scene with her or Gaga and him talking, it's the type of stuff that just like sends chills down your spine and just makes your skin crawl. I've never been through an alcohol or drug addiction, and I'm not even meaning this in a funny way. Like, I do think I have somewhat of an addiction to food, and that's probably where my obesity from a kid stemmed from. And I'm sure if I sat down with a therapist, you could probably pick my brain apart in terms as to why I do it. And to some extent, I still do. So I think I have an understanding of addiction and how hard it is to kick it. But what he was going through will definitely be something that I can't comprehend, but I think I can still understand where he's coming from. So not only that, I also thought their romance was really just tender, sweet, and beautiful, and it was just really elegant, and I just enjoy watching them together. They have wonderful chemistry on screen together, and I'm so glad that Bradley stood his ground and said, I want her to be in this movie, because he announced his pick to Warner Brothers, and they said no. Like, they turned him down all the time. And I think the way she got cast was they saw a video of her singing, and then they brought her in for a screen test, and then had them
saw a video of them singing together.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. They saw them two singing together, and they're like, okay, yeah, go for it. So I'm really glad that they made that happen. And speaking of the music, Bradley Cooper can shred a guitar. My God. And I heard that not only did he practice an instrument, he practiced vocals for not only singing, but his accent. It's just like the guy has put so much time and effort into this movie that it's almost infectious to know like how passionate he was behind this, and it just makes you love the movie even more. So I really enjoyed the authenticity with the singing and the music, and of course, Gaga's got an amazing voice. She almost reminds me of an Amy Winehouse type of voice, and it's just really powerful. So to get to more into the technical stuff, I've already mentioned Cooper's direction and stuff. The cinematography is gorgeous. It's very in the moment type of filmmaking. It's very more of medium shots and close-ups to really get you into the story. And it's just, like I said, it just really brings you in for the emotional weight of the movie, and I really enjoyed that. I will say that my only, I guess, it's not really an issue. It's just more of I could feel the weight of this movie in terms of the time. It is a 2 hour and 15-minute movie, as much as I enjoyed watching it, and even some of the heavier like thematic elements to this, it does kind of weigh down your kind of energy to watch this movie. I felt like it was a tad too long. That I think they could have maybe cut some scenes in the second act a little bit where they're or it's like the kind of the meat of the story where she's rising up to her stardom or whatever. It's just, it can feel a bit long, but I think the kind of thing driving the movie is the original soundtrack, and these performances are really just kind of showcasing talents all over the place. And it's the type of soundtrack that just like, oh man, some of those songs just really is like a gut punch of emotion, and I really appreciate that. I think that's about it from my end. I will say that one last thing, Sam Elliott. What a surprise. That was some of the best work I've seen from him in years, and he only had like 2 or 3 scenes. I know it wasn't much, but that scene with him in the truck, like that got me on a deep level, because, Joel and I have siblings, and so I'm pretty sure if one of our siblings talked to us like that, we would probably react the same way and like try to hide it, but be super vulnerable and like have the tears like kind of pop through. It's just that, oh man, that gave me chills, because I was like, oh man, if my brother ever told me that, I wouldn't even know how to react. So yeah, Sam Elliott, definitely best work he's done in a long time. And I guess I will say one last thing. I'll throw it over Joel before I give my my rating. What a neat little surprise to see Eddie Griffith in this movie. And that's not even a spoiler. I'm just going to let you know he's in there, and he appears for like 2 seconds. He says like 2 lines, and then he's gone. And I'm like, where has this guy been?
Yeah, I am endlessly fascinated about how he got roped into that. I'm assuming it was
Dave
probably
Chappelle.
because of Dave Chappelle. Yeah, because I know that they're good friends in real life.
Yeah, and of course, it's a scene. It's a scene with Dave Chappelle, so it actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I guess
he probably went to some of his comedian buddies and was like, "Hey, is anybody free
to do this one
real
scene
quick
for
thing?
half a day?
Play my cousin.
Play my cousin.
Yeah,
yeah. It was such a neat little surprise.
Yeah.
And one last thing I will say is one of the catchiest.
These are 3 last things that you're saying, buddy.
Hey, you know what, Joel? There's just a lot to talk about. I think this is a good way to kind of end it. The soundtrack is one of the catchier soundtracks I've listened to all year. So I will give it that. So I'm going to give A Star Is Born, this version, and only version I've ever seen, a solid A. I loved it. Now, here's the tricky part, though. Is it going to make top 10? I'm still a little unsure about that. Just because there's so much strong competition there right now, I don't really want to eliminate anything right now. We kind of need to see where the end of the year goes. But for right now, I still love it. And I'll still stand by my grade with a solid A, man.
All right, so my review is going to be pretty similar. I'm going to start with Cooper's direction, which I think is pretty stunning. And strangely enough, I'm actually, on that note, going to start with something in the storytelling from him and co-screenwriters Eric Roth and Will Fetters. I'm going to note 2 things. One's real quick, just because I mentioned Fetters. So Lady Gaga plays a character named Allie. Her name is spelled Allly. And this is interesting because it reminds me of a movie from 2010 called Remember Me. That was the one that starred Robert Pattinson and Emily de Ravine, Chris Cooper, Pierce Brosnan. Pretty good cast, good movie, very underrated, in which Emily de Ravine played a character named Allie, spelled Allly. It's a curious spelling of that name, and it's curious to find it in 2 movies about kind of very dramatic romances that come to a certain kind of ending. And it's curious because Will Fetters was a screenwriter on both. So I'm kind of coming to the point where I think that maybe he had some sort of a romance or something with someone named Allie spelledAlly. That's 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 just what I'm thinking. But anyway, that's unconnected to anything else I'm going to say. Um, the other thing I was going to say was that there's this very, very specific detail in the trajectory of the careers of these two characters that could be very easily missed if one isn't paying attention to that soundtrack. And I'm wondering if you caught on to this. Every single time we hear Bradley Cooper's character Jackson sing, it's the same song. We'll hear snippets of other songs, but the one that he sings either in full or mostly in full is the same one, and it's the one that we hear in the trailer at the beginning. The one with the lyrics, maybe we should. What was it? Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Something like that.
Well, yeah,
and we'll
it
hear
goes
him.
back to the whole notion of this aging singer that is kind of run down, kind of like a one note kind of spinster, and then you have this up and rising star who is not only evolutionizing her character but also her music and how she's being managed. And it's just, yeah, you're right, it's like this weird trajectory on both, and one's towards the end of the career, one's just starting.
And it's kind of core because we'll hear at some point she sings only different songs. You think of the one at the SNL performance, and even the one in the last scene, she reprises one from earlier in the movie there, but it's essentially every time we hear her at some point it's a different song. And for him, it's the same one. And then what happens is over the course of the plot, she has found herself getting the she goes to an awards ceremony, let's say that. And meanwhile, he does too, but she has been nominated and he has been added to a tribute to Roy Orbison. That's not really a huge spoiler because there's a whole other element of that scene that I won't talk about, but it kind of struck me as this is what's at the heart of this movie. The fact that at some point this is what people will think of you, that you're going to be really good in a group of fellow musicians who are paying tribute to somebody else. And so that's where his career has gone. Meanwhile, she's become this big pop star, singing lyrics that may or may not be written by her after having found her gig as a songwriter. And so that's what's at the heart of this movie. And I think that what Cooper is able to convey through his direction is delicate human moments that understand the characters. And you're absolutely right. During the performances, until I think that last one, there's never a shot of the audience. We keep on the stage in the faces of Jackson and Allie the entire time. And sometimes it'll like pan over the faces of the band and stuff, but we never go into the audience. And that is key because that's how it is on a stage. I haven't ever done like a concert, but I've been on stage in theater, and all you're thinking about in the moment on theater is everybody else on stage with you. That's all. So this is essentially akin to like if a movie was about, actors on stage and these different shows these different performances that they do, and never going into the audience, only keeping on the stage for the play. That's kind of what this would be. And I think it's a brilliant choice as a director because, and it's also brilliant because you get, as you said, the cinematographer, Matthew Libatique, who really likes the color red, by the way. I've noticed that across his career, but I'm going to get into that later in the show. And it's such like rich cinematography. It's got this rich palette of reds and it really uses a lot of different colors, but red is the one that kind of ties everything together. And we're able to get these close-ups of these faces that are tired, sweaty. We don't see that a lot, by the way. We don't see sweat on stage in performances in movies. I've noticed that generally speaking, a movie will kind of dumb down the experience of performing on a stage in a song to the point that you are still perfectly in all of your makeup and all of that. The lights somehow magically aren't affecting your body temperature. So, and that definitely doesn't happen on stage. You're like dripping sweat by the end of it. And I liked the fact that Cooper was so attuned to every single detail of the performance venue that by the end of some of the performances, she's got a line of sweat across her forehead. Some of her hair is matted to the side of her face, and it's the same thing with him. And even just details like that are just so vivid, and it's to the point that I think that the plot is kind of familiar. It plays pretty expectedly. Even up until the end, we've seen stories like this before in movies, but I don't think that we've seen one. Well, we might have, but it's been rare that we've seen one with this attentive detail to characters. And I think that that's the important thing, is that this could easily have just been about the plot, about how it plays out. Um, this happens, then she becomes famous, then he kind of dwindles in his career, then he kind of relapses, and all of that stuff might happen in some way, but it's not in that usual just kind of by the numbers way. It makes it seem fresh enough that it's just really it's exciting to watch this be Cooper's directorial debut, and it's such a confident one. He's clearly learned a lot, and I know that specifically he's borrowed a lot of techniques from Clint Eastwood, so he's clearly learned a lot from Clint Eastwood. Apparently he's borrowed Eastwood's way of not saying action when the camera rolls. He just lets it roll and then says, "Hey, we're rolling." Um, and obviously he's been in now 2 movies with Eastwood, with the Mule. That's this is the second one. So he's clearly learned a lot from him and from everybody else that he's worked with, and it's just such a rich and these performances, man, just so good. Cooper gives it's really 2 of the best performances of the year, but you're absolutely right that Lady Gaga is definitely, this is no Mariah Carey and Glitter performance. It's very much more of a Sharon Moonstruck performance, I think. This musician who's proving herself as a dramatic actress. We already know that she has a phenomenal vocal range, so what she needs to prove to us is that she has the dramatic chops to sell a role like this, and she absolutely does, and it's because of her camaraderie with Cooper in the performances, in their arguments, in their tender moments together, and it's just strong work from Gaga, and Cooper is equally great, and it's such an exquisitely balanced performance because he's playing with ideas of caricature, because he's kind of borrowed his voice from Sam Elliott's character, and also desperation. He's desperate to make it for himself again, but also to kind of dig himself out of this cycle that he's gotten himself into. And that's where it all ends up at the end. That this is essentially an examination of privilege because of just inherent things in the storytelling, of celebrity, of a competitive industry and the cyclical nature of that. And it really is all kind of summed up in a very delicate way with this final speech that we get from Sam Elliott's character. And I won't say who he's talking to or anything like that. That would be a spoiler. But there's one note or one line in his speech that I think pretty much sums up the entire movie, and it's the line, "12 notes and the octave repeats." And he's talking about the nature of music there. And I think that the same could be said of Stardom, which means that this story, while it isn't anything new, is being told again because that's how it goes. Because pretty much any story set within a competitive industry that tries to tell about a life and a career is going to tell this story to some degree, even if it doesn't have the same plot points even if it doesn't have the same outcome, it's pretty much telling this story of, again, that cyclical nature of achieving fame, sometimes losing it, sometimes making a big comeback, sometimes not. And it's familiar, but it works because it's so well performed. And so, yeah, it's really good. I'm not going to quite go an A with it just because um, it just didn't speak to me in that kind of way, but it is an A minus in a hard one. It's very, very good. I haven't seen the other films. I was going to try to watch them before I saw this one, but two of them are extremely long, and I don't have a lot of time. So the 1954 one is 178 minutes, so you can tell why maybe I didn't quite just make the time for that one. But it's a very, very good movie, and I hope that everybody sees it, especially now that it's definitely making money at the box office. We'll just say that. So yeah. Anyway, A minus for me and an A from Chase. And let us know what you guys thought, because it's a good one. All right, so we are going to move on to my first extra review, and this one is for the Sisters Brothers. This is the latest film from director Jacques Audiard of A Prophet and Rust and Bone, and this one stars John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix as sibling assassins Eli and Charlie's sisters, who live in the Old West, and their ruthless skills are employed by a man only known as the Commodore, played in a wordless cameo by Rutger Hauer, appearing for some reason that I cannot figure out. He literally has no dialogue, and he appears once in a window, and that is it. Anyway, these brothers have been sent to find and silence a prospector named Herman Kermit Warm, who is played by Riz Ahmed. He has developed an untested formula for finding gold in water, and that is because this takes place right in the midst of the gold prospecting craze that happened in California. Meanwhile, the detective that hired them to do this, John Morris, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, ends up finding himself more sympathetic to Worm's cause than he initially realizes. And yeah, so unfortunately, though, these men live in the Old West, where lots of things are very harsh and brutal, and they are not prepared for this. They're not prepared for the unchecked scientific progress that somebody has made here, and they are not prepared for their own hidden natures to pop out and visit everyone. It's quite a good movie. I was looking forward to this just based on the casting. I mean, it's a great cast. John C. Reilly, Joaquin Phoenix, Riz Ahmed, Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, how could you not be excited for something with a cast like that, right? And I know that, Chase, you were excited for this one, right?
Yeah. I don't know why I had like a brain fart. I was just thinking to myself, what was the Sister Brothers again? I remember watching that trailer. I remember loving it. So yeah, it was just one of those ones that I need to catch up on.
For sure. But this one is good. It's basically a tale about, kind of underestimating one's own sense of readiness in the Old West, and it gets a lot of its appeal comes from the actors, with one exception. And Chase is probably gonna be really mad at me for saying who this is, but anyway, I'll get to that in a little bit. It's not a perfect movie, for sure. It moves a little slowly. It's just more than 2 hours. I think that they could probably shave some off, but in any case, the definite stars of the movie are Reilly and Phoenix, who are great here. Particularly Reilly, who has a performance here that's more dramatic than anything I've seen him give in a while. Maybe since We Need to Talk About Kevin, because I don't know if anybody's seen that, but he was in that. And Phoenix is really good too. I mean, obviously it's Joaquin Phoenix. But these two embark on a journey that's quite unexpected to them, because along the way Riley's character determines that he no longer wants this life. He doesn't want to be the guy who just goes around and kills people. Um, and Phoenix has no such thoughts. He actually has uh, ambitions to take over for the Commodore violently. Let's just say that. Um, but unfortunately, this trip that they have takes its toll. And in fact, there's this grotesque scene where a tarantula crawls into the Riley character's mouth while they're sleeping and lays eggs in his cheek. And that's basically the kind of the last straw for him. He wants to get out of this life where he's journeying across the entire country and doesn't know what's going to happen to him because he suffers venom poisoning for quite a while. And then ultimately, I'm sorry to say, I kind of want to get people prepared for this, but he spits out a bunch of eggs that immediately hatch and become a bunch of spiders. It's a gross moment, but it's actually an important one too, and it's really important to the plot of this movie because it's the point where he decides he wants to get out. And Phoenix just finds it to be a bit of a, because he didn't experience it, it just is a bit of an annoyance along this trip, and he doesn't expect that shift from his brother. And meanwhile, the movie also splits its time with this subplot involving Ahmed and Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal kind of stalks Ahmed until Ahmed, kind of makes him, and they go off together on this really interesting and unpredictable journey involving this formula that Ahmed's character has developed. And Ahmed's good here. He is basically kind of a bit guileless in the face of his own scientific progress. He is very, very determined to see it through. Unfortunately, the odd man out here for me is Jake Gyllenhaal. And I hate saying that, but he adopts this really weird accent that seems to be some sort of mix between Southern and like Atlantic, Northeastern Atlantic, to the degree that it was all I could think about during his performance until the third act. And it's just a strange performance that I don't think he quite sells. It's a strange character too. It's cool to see him, reunited with Ahmed after Nightcrawler, but it's just it's a strange performance in the way that his performances really haven't been before. Because first of all, he's not really working with much. This is a character who just kind of is there, at least until the third act, which is a total like bonkers thing that happens. But it's a strange performance that I don't think he quite understands how to incorporate into the rest of the movie. It always feels at odds with what's going on, and not in that interesting way where you keep thinking about how cool it is that Jake Gyllenhaal is doing this accent. It's distracting. But after all of this, it comes down to a third act that is one of the boldest pieces of storytelling of the year. I won't give anything away, but I will just say that there's a reason that the formula for finding gold in the rivers is untested. And it's something that is concealed until it's too late. And so the third act becomes this incredibly bleak exploration, or not exploration, but examination of mortality that is fascinating. It seems to me to be something straight out of, like, it fits less in this movie and more in something like There Will Be Blood. Some of the early parts of that movie where we were kind of getting accustomed to the brutal nature of just like the physically brutal nature of oil drilling. That's what it reminded me of in many, many ways. And it is fascinating to watch it all unfold. It's not easy to watch sometimes, um, and it's utterly bleak. There's literally very little hope by the end of this movie, and it's fascinating. So, yeah, I quite like this one. Again, it moves kind of slowly. I was surprised by that because the trailers seem to suggest something of a kind of a sibling romp, a more serious take on something that Riley has been involved in, like, Step Brothers and all that. Seemed to me not to be an outright comedy, but sort of have these comic interludes and a story about these wacky brothers in the Old West. It's not that. It's very serious. It's graphically violent. Some shocking moments of graphic violence here, even for an Old West movie, especially at the beginning. It does not let up on that. And yeah, it really quite surprised me. It's good stuff. So I'm giving The Sisters Brothers a B. Now, Chase, does this pique your interest even more?
Yeah, I mean, I love the cast involved. I still like that trailer. So even with saying that it's vastly different from the trailers, I still want to check it out just because of the cast involved.
Yeah, and I cannot wait. Whenever you do see this, and I seriously want you to make make a thing out of trying to see this before the end of the year, or if not, then like on Blu-ray, because I really want your reaction to the ending. I have a feeling your jaw's going to be on the floor the entire time. It's insane. I literally, I think my jaw was dropped the entire time. It's brutal to watch. So good stuff. I hope everybody gets a chance to check this out. It's been out for a couple of weeks. In limited release, it's just kind of coming around to wide release, I think, this weekend. So certainly check it out. All right, and then I've got another review for you guys, and that would be Venom. This is the latest film in Sony's Marvel universe, and it comes from director Ruben Fleischer of Zombieland and Gangster Squad. Tom Hardy stars in this one as Eddie Brock, a selfish cad of a TV journalist who investigates corporate espionage and tradecraft. Except that he looks too deeply into a specific foundation called the Life Foundation. And that name is very, very curious to me. Was it curious to you for the reasons that I'm hinting at here?
Yeah, because Sony decided to poop out another movie with the same title name, and they said it was not a prequel. So
Yeah.
it's whatever. If they want to backtrack at this point, whatever, Joel.
It's crazy because it's definitely a prequel. All right. So this is the Life Foundation, and its CEO, played by Riz Ahmed again. Connections all over the place in this weekend's movies because this movie was also shot by Matthew Libatique of A Star Is Born. He has been abducting the city's homeless and turning them into guinea pigs after a returning spacecraft unleashes a symbiote upon the population. Eddie is infected with that symbiote upon investigating it, and turns into partly venom, a sentient puddle of goo, black as onyx, that gives him superhuman powers. Yeah, I was not excited for this movie. I think I made that clear over the course of the year when trailers came out. It looked pretty dire. I'm happy to report that it's slightly better than the trailers suggested it was, but it's not very good, and in fact, it's quite forgettable. There's this weird attitude toward this movie, though, and I know that you've seen this, Chase. People saying
it
that,
irritates me. I just want to say that.
People have been saying that this is a new bad movie classic, and it's not. Let's stop with that. Now, certainly, it looked like it was going to be one, but I think that they're mistaking like just weird character choices as being crazy directorial choices or storytelling choices. It's really weird because the movie is not interesting enough to be a bad movie classic. And in fact, it's pretty much your typical superhero origin story in a certain way. It's just been put onto a villain. Now, of course, we don't really find out where Venom comes from, like what made him, and another one that comes out becomes part of the story late in the third act. But it's pretty much your typical origin story. I mean, you get an introduction to this character, you get an introduction to the villain, you have them fight at the end. And that sounds pretty typical to me, right? You have the human character has relationship problems, and in this case, it's with his fiancee Anne, played by a Lost at Sea Michelle Williams, and you have just like a bunch of stuff happening in order to inform the third act and in order to tell us what's going on constantly with almost every line of dialogue. So it's pretty much your typical superhero origin movie, just a lot less interesting than a lot of the other ones that have ever come out. And it's extremely middling, unfortunately. I think that I wish it was interesting enough to be this bad movie classic. I also wish it was interesting enough to work. It just doesn't, and I think that it starts right at the top because Fleischer just kind of directs this thing with, a slight sense of sarcastic humor and pretty much nothing else. The movie, despite being shot by Matthew Libatique, looks extremely processed and plastic. He once again uses red to his advantage in a couple of the scenes, especially set in the lab. The scene where he becomes Venom is really good, and it's probably the best scene in the movie. And it's because of that, partly because of that use of red. It's really striking. But otherwise, it looks processed and plastic to me. It doesn't mesh well with the visual effects, which are often really terrible. There's this right at the beginning. There's the crash of the plane, and I did not believe for a second that there was actually a plane there interacting with real trees. The forest that it crashes into, it was terrible. It was an awful bit of visual effects there right at the beginning, and it's also the same scene that opens the Predator. Essentially, I don't know if you noticed that, but it's the same setup. You have the bad guys conferring all together or whatever, and people all conferring together, then a plane crashes and an alien is unleashed. It's literally that, and you just think that you've seen this entire thing before. It was way more interesting to me, and I'm about to again bring up my love of Spider-Man 3, but I really prefer in every single way the appearance of Venom in that movie than to this one, because in that one you got a little bit of a hint of the actual Venom character when it takes over a human. One scene with Topher Grace, and that's it. That's all we needed, because there's really nothing interesting about the Venom character. All he does is he basically possesses the person and then kind of amplifies whatever is most annoying about them. That's pretty much all it does. There's really nothing more to it than that, and so it all comes down to who he becomes attached to, and here it couldn't be with a less interesting character. As much as Tom Hardy tries very, very hard, he gives a strange performance as Eddie Brock, and then that's pretty much all. That's it's never boring, but that's pretty much all he does. Is he just has this weird accent. It's more comedic than we're used to from him, and that's about it. And meanwhile, Michelle Williams again seems completely lost at sea. There's nothing interesting about her performance. She looks not committed to it at all. And then Ahmed just kind of stands around and does nefarious things. Jenny Slate shows up as a scientist, but it might as well be anyone in that role. There's nothing really human about that role. It just seems to be filler. So it's just a bunch of circular exposition. It's not very interesting. It's also not a disaster because it's too boring for that. And unfortunately, I think it works best as a comedy. like a buddy comedy. I think that it's a buddy comedy, both intentional because there's a lot of banter between Eddie and Venom once they become attached to each other. Um, some of the action sequences or the combat sequences, I should say, of hand-to-hand combat are pretty cool, but a lot of it's just empty mayhem. And then you have the unintentional comedy of it, and that's with the poor effects and the goofy sincerity that it just can't keep a straight face with. And yeah, it's just kind of a dull movie. So that's why with a lot of confidence I can tell you all that the good Venom movie this year is Upgrade. And the real Venom, the Venom movie here, I'm giving a C because it's just predictable and bland. That's pretty much all it is. It's not a disaster. It's not terrible. It'd be okay, I guess, for a rental if you're looking for something that's a time waster to watch on 4K this year. But yeah, it's or next year, I guess, by the time it comes out. It's just not very good. And yeah, it was better than I thought it would be, not as good as it needs to be. And that's why I'm giving Venom a C. So I know that you agree on this one, right, Chase?
Yeah, it made me so angry when the movie was done because I will tell you guys straight up if it's good, bad, in the middle, because like I love this genre, I want them all to succeed, but in reality, Venom it was a movie, it was there, like that
It was there.
It was there on the screen, and then it was gone. The best thing I liked about it was the potential of the post-credit scene being the actual movie I wanted to see in the first place.
Yeah.
But I mean, whatever.
Or the mid-credit scene. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of the post-credit scene made me angry, actually, and I won't get into that. But and yes, that thing kind of made me upset that they would do that. But the mid-credit scene, absolutely, I think that there's a lot of potential in a sequel, and they're very clearly going to make a sequel to this. I guarantee you, based on the box office of this thing. And I think that there's potential because of who shows up, who plays him, and the performance that we get shown to us there is really good. I don't know if you thought so, but I thought that everything about that mid-credit scene was awesome. From the way that it's set up as literally a stinger, and to the person who shows up and the performance that he's giving seems really interesting. I like the physical appearance of the character. It has real potential to be a much better sequel. And I hope it is. And I kind of hope they make it. Even if I don't like this movie, there's potential there for a good sequel. And I am very interested to see if they make it. So yeah, it's a lot more interesting than anything else.
But Joel, all the critics online say it's the next Catwoman. Well, like, how are we supposed to compete with that?
I mean, it's weird. I haven't even seen Catwoman, but I've seen extended sequences from Catwoman, and that movie was basically an extended music video. It seems that's not what this is. It's competently plotted. Like, from what I'm gathering about Catwoman, it's not even competently plotted. So this is competently plotted. Like, it has a clear 3-act structure. It's not the work of Dumbos behind the pen. The problem is it doesn't get off the ground, but it's not like a dumb movie. That's the thing, is I don't think that, other than very specific choices, I don't think it's a dumb movie. I think that it's just a forgettable movie, and it doesn't really commit to any particular ambition that it has. And so that's the problem with it. It's not that it's ragingly stupid, because it would be way more interesting right now if it was. And right now it just kind of sits on the screen and doesn't do anything with the audience. That's all it is. And yeah, so in any case, there we go. That's my review of Venom. Now, because it is one day after Sunday, what we've decided from here on out is if we have to record after Sunday, then we're not going to play the guessing game with the box office. I can't, especially this weekend because of how Chase was so excited. I can't expect him to not look at the box office for a whole day and a half. So I'm just going to report to y'all what happened with the weekend totals this week. And yeah, so At number 5, dropping from number 3, we had the House with a Clock in Its Walls with 7.3 million. Now this, of course, is Monday actuals because we are past that point. But the House with a Clock in Its Walls with 7.3 million for a domestic total of 55.1 and a worldwide total of 89.9. It's got a $42 million budget, so it's finally broken even. And yeah. So, dropping from number 1 to number 4 is Night School with 12.5 million, total domestic gross of 47, I should say, and a worldwide total of 59. Now, that might seem like a big drop, and it in fact is. It's a 55% drop, I think. 54% drop, I should say. But this thing is doing really well. I mean, is it not, Chase? This movie is killing it. It's already it has just now broken even in its second weekend. Like that's good news.
Yeah, I mean, it's typical fare for
for a Universal comedy. That's pretty much that's usual for them. It's because it's a $29 million movie, so they know how to spend not a whole lot on these comedies. Dropping from number 2 to number 3 is Smallfoot with 14.4 million. A domestic total of 42.3 and a worldwide of 75.6. It doesn't have a listed production budget, so I'll just guess that it's probably doing pretty well. All right, debuting at number 2 is A Star Is Born with $42.9 million. Big debut for that. Really good. And a total domestic gross of 44.3 and worldwide 58.5. Now, this is awesome news. It was a $36 million movie, so it didn't cost a whole lot. I know that they kept their costs pretty conservative on this one. So, good news for them. Very big opening. Like to see that. Now, the big one. The record-breaking October movie of all time, right? Is that what I'm gathering? It's pretty much of any October movie? Okay. I didn't know if it was like big release October movie, but although I guess that would be the only place it makes sense. But is Venom at number 1 with $80.3 million this weekend and a worldwide total of 205.5. And guess what, guys? Based on its worldwide numbers, it has already broken even because this was a $100 million movie, kind of low budget for something like this, for Sony to put only that much money in. I mean, let's face it, these things usually run about $250. So they kept their costs low. That was a good call, and man, did it pay off because that's a good number. For them to, like I said, they're going to make a sequel to this. They have the money now. And, I'm certainly interested in seeing where they go from here. So, good numbers all around. That's the top 5. I'm looking through big drops. There weren't any big, like, huge drops, were there? I mean, Assassination Nation dropped from number 29 to number 63. 96%
to the bottom of the dumpster now.
Yeah, I mean, they lost 1,000 screens. It's down to 15 screens. Dropped 96%. Let's see, looking through here. The Old Man of the Gun rose 184%. With $403,000 this week. And then, meanwhile, The Hate U Give had its limited opening in 36 theaters and made $512,000. That's pretty good. Per theater average of $14,000. It's a pretty impressive debut. Related to that movie, the very sad news, I don't know if you heard about this, but the screenwriter passed away this weekend. Of the screenwriter of The Hate U Give died on Wednesday. Andre Wells, I think of cancer, which is really sad to hear. I'm seeing the movie in a couple weeks. I know you have already seen it, Chase. And I know you liked that one a lot, right?
I guess you'll just have to see my review, but I thought it was
I
thought it was whatever, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know why I thought of it.
Another pretty cool thing is Free Solo, a documentary about a guy who does free solo climbing. Rose 91% from number 24 to number 12. Pretty impressive for a movie from Nat Geo. Gotta say, I didn't expect that. Random bump for Christopher Robin entered the top 20 in its 10th week. Pretty cool. That's pretty much it, guys. So next week is back on schedule for a Sunday episode. We'll be doing one on Sunday evening, and our main review is going to be for First Man, which I have already seen. I know that, Chase, you're seeing it tomorrow night, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I cannot wait to find out what he thinks. Because I think that he'll probably know what I think before I know what he thinks. I typically, we're joint reviewing this for Dallas movie screenings, and I send my review to him, which means that I don't see his review, or I don't really find out his review on stuff like that until the episode. So unless we're not reviewing it on the episode, so he'll probably know at least a little bit about my feelings. Until then, though, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for some Ryan Gosling true life action. Chase, where can the people find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel where you can get all the reviews that I don't do on this podcast. Like I have the Hate You Give up there and Venom. And tomorrow, at the time of this recording, I have The Oath and Bad Times at the El Royale dropping as well. So, if you just want to go to it, you can go to it. But as far as this podcast goes, you can, whether you're listening on CastBox, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spreaker, wherever you're listening, please, give this a like, comment, do whatever, share it around, and just continue to support this lovely little podcast that Joel and I just love bringing you guys every single week.
All right, and you can find my writing at Joel on Film, in addition to reviews of A Star is Born, The Sisters, Brothers, and Venom. I caught up with one of the worst movies of the year, Gotti, caught up with a little dopey horror movie called Feral, and also watched The Seagull, which is the big Anton Chekhov adaptation with Saoirse Ronan and Annette Bening. Quite good, so you can find out what I think in depth at joelonfilm.com. At Twitter, you can find me at RealJoelCopling, Letterboxd, J Copling. Find some of my reviews at DallasMovieScreenings.com. This week, I reviewed All About Nina and Free Solo, like I just mentioned. Quite like both of those, so you can read those reviews as well. Big weekend for me in terms of writing. So, in any case, that's going to be it. Chase, any last words?
No, man. I'm ready to end this episode so we can get to a little First Man action. I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. All right. Take us out, sir.
All right. Well, that will do it for this week's episode, guys. Tune in next week for another episode of Real Men Colon Movie Podcast for episode 250. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We will see you guys next week, guys. You're awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.